Southeast Radio's Business Matters with Carl Fitzpatrick.
Well, I'm now joined by a resident economist, Marc Coleman. Marc, it was announced this week that the HSE could have an overrun in their budget this year of up to €1.5 billion. What are your thoughts on this, and what likely impact could this have on budget 2024?
Well, I think, first of all, we have to note that the inefficiency of the HSE, despite the many excellent people that work in it, and the majority of them are absolutely excellent and dedicated, particularly at local level, but as a large organisation that was created or miscreated under the guidance of the trade union movement and the social partners over 20 years ago, it's become an enormous black hole for the government into which more and more tax money disappears to get burnt up. Let's pause to reflect the economic implications of this in the long term. Taxes are far higher than they need to be. Health outcomes are not as good as they should be because we're a young country. We shouldn't be spending more than other countries on health. We should be spending less because we're a young, vibrant country. So we are not achieving health outcomes because of organizational dysfunction. The fact that you can't fire anybody, the fact that you can't hold anybody to account, this is having a long-term economic effect in not giving citizens the health care that they need, the health outcomes they need, and of course keeping taxes higher than they should be. What's the short-term implication? Well, as we've been talking about for the last year, we've had a year, 2 years in fact, in which the cost of living, which was already very high in this country, has escalated enormously, and we see inflation figures being driven up further by ECB interest rate rises, which are having, in that regard, the opposite effect to what's intended. So we drastically need to reduce taxation. But the signals coming out of government buildings in the last couple of days are that while tax cuts or tax relief or an end of tax austerity, which was inflicted recently, was in sight a week ago, that may now evaporate because Stephen Donnelly might need that money. I can only end by pointing to the opinion poll published this week in the Irish Times, which suggests that the government's core vote is now less than a third of the electorate, and that between the don't knows and the independents, they amount to 38% of the electorate. I think that if the badly needed relief doesn't happen in the budget, and if the HSE is to blame, I think that situation can only get worse for the government.
Well, if you've just tuned in, that was our resident economist, Marc Coleman, and Marc will be joining us again on next Saturday's show. Well, if you're a fan of Stephen Bartlett from Diary of a CEO, he's going to be speaking in Dublin on November 15th at the Wealth Summit, and you can find out more information about this event at thewealthsummit.ie.
Southeast Radio's Business Matters with Carl Fitzpatrick.